Yesterday, a Patreon member requested that I do a video where I explain Rocketlauncher fade and animations and things like that. So I'm going to do that in this video, but I'm also going to go through my whole process. When somebody requests that I play a game, I'm going to go through the whole process of what I do for the artwork and how all that works. So, yeah, I recently did Power Stone. Somebody requested that. That's a Sega Naomi game. So, let's say I have no clue what the ROM name is. Here's what I'm going to... So, see all these shortcuts here? This is Rocketlauncher. This is Rocketlauncher Media. This is Emulators. That's a Hyperspin folder. This is MAME's folder. This is a Hyperspin Databases folder. This is Marquees. This can just be anywhere. I have this on the C drive because my C drive is an SSD, so it's faster. And a lot of these files are pretty big files. And I want them to be able to display really fast on my marquee, so that's why I put them there. Bezels, that's a Rocketlauncher folder. And then Fade, another Rocketlauncher folder. All right. So first, we're going to go to this Hyperspin Databases folder. So this, I have this defaulting to go into MAME. See, it's an arcade databases MAME. So if you press the genre button when you're in Hyperspin, when you're in MAME, these are all genres. Everything you're seeing here is genres. So there's a lot of different genres that are set up. You know, Extreme Home Arcade set up these genres. But this favorites here, this is my favorites file. So anything you put into here is gonna show up in your favorites wheel. So I have Hyperspin by default opening to my favorites. And these are all the games you'll see. There's over 2,000 games in this list. I just keep adding games to it. Like, people request games and I just like keep adding them to this list because I realize, oh, actually I like this game. So anyway, that's one thing. So databases, we were talking about Power Stone. So I'm at arcade databases. So this is where every system is. Every system's databases for Hyperspin are in here. So I'm just going to type S to get to Sega Naomi really fast. So now we're in here. So you can see they have all these different genres for Sega Naomi too. So I'm going to go to the Sega Naomi one. I don't have a favorites list for this one. So now I could just type, I'll do Control F and I'll type in Power Stone, and there it is, Power Stone. And the ROM name is P Stone. That's all I needed to know. For like, yeah, a lot of games, a lot of times, you know, the ROM name, you don't know what it's going to actually be. You know, this game's Power Stone. It could have ended up being Pow Stow. You know, you never know. So now we know, Power Stone. All right, so then the first thing I might do is like, all right, do I have a good marquee? I think for this game I didn't at the time. So what I had to do was, I went to my marquee folder, which as I said is C drive Marquees. I go to the P's and I search for I'm using my my trackball. That's what I do. I use my trackball and I use my mouse buttons on my control panel to navigate. So there's a P-Stone marquee. This is actually the one that I ended up finding. So, but I didn't have this before when the guy requested this game. So let's go. I would go search Google. So I go Power Stone Arcade. I already had it in there. Power Stone Arcade marquee. And I'll go to images. There you go. A lot of times what I do is I go to tools and then I go to size and I go to large because I only want them showing me high quality image. But as you see, I just went to large and then it took away that one where I said there you go. So sometimes that isn't the good idea. But this could be just like a preview image. See, it says 1000 by 308 and that is not big enough. But if I go to this site, it might get better. I don't know. This might be the image that I actually used. This isn't a very good image. I usually try to get better than this. But this might be... Oh, wait, that's Power Stone 2. Okay, I used this image maybe for Power Stone 2. So let's go back. Is that what autofilled? No, Power Stone. All right, so what image did I use for Power Stone? Okay, now I remember. So I did this Power Stone arcade marquee search, and I just kept seeing these Power Stone 2 marquees, and I wasn't finding... It's like if I go here, you're still not seeing a good marquee for Power Stone. I see some art here, But then what I did was, see, sometimes I have to do different types of searches. I went to all, and right here at arcademarquee.com, which is a good resource, if you go here, here is a Power Stone marquee. So this is the one I used for Power Stone. And the Power Stone 2 marquee, I did that game recently too, because that was requested along with Power Stone. Looks identical to this one, except with a 2 here. So I'm guessing that this is a real marquee and then someone added the 2, or I don't know, maybe they're both legitimate. Because, okay, if I hit back, see, here's the Power Stone 2 arcade marquee, and it looks the exact same, just with a 2. So I don't know if it's just some art job somebody did or what. But anyway, that's where I got it. Okay, so you get that, you know, you can edit however you want. Like, you might want to crop it. Like, this has some black bars at the top and bottom. You might want to, so this is the editor I use. I used to use GIMP, and I got tired of GIMP. I didn't like how its interface much. So this is a free online Photoshop clone called Photopia. Just go to photopia.com. And the reason it's free is they have ads over here on the right. And it works just like Photoshop. So I'm going to hit open, and let me see if I can find... I'm going to open... I'm going to go to Marquees, and I'm going to go to that marquee. I don't think I ever actually noticed those black bars. Where is it? P-Stone is right up here. There's P-Stone, and that, yeah, I edited that on September 8th. So yeah, I didn't crop it. So what I would usually do, and I could zoom this in a little bit. Let's zoom too much. Whatever. I would just, you know, do something like that just to crop out the black. And there you go. And then I would save it. You can just do file, export as, and I'll do PNG. I usually do that, save, and then you just say the directory. I'll just say Marquees, and see these directories that I use often, they just get saved here. And then I'll do save as P-Stone. There you go. And it didn't overwrite because the original was a JPEG, so this is a PNG. And my hypermarquee is set to default to PNG first and then JPEG second. So now this will be the one that they open. This isn't a super high res image. I usually prefer a higher res one, but you know, beggars can't be choosers. All right, so next. So for Power Stone, I didn't have a bezel and I didn't have a fade image. So let's say I just do Power Stone Arcade. And I'm always, for these ones, okay, images, and I'm always going to do large for, definitely for a fade or a bezel. So I saw this, and this is, it's big enough, 850 by 1203. So I saved this flyer, and I made that. And then I think I found this image, right? I like images of cabinets like, and this is, you know, high enough res, 900 by 1200. This power, see, oh, you can see it actually confirms that the marquee is how it is in the actual cabinet. So I took this image. So let's go back to Photopia. I'm just gonna, I'll go to new, and I'll do width 1920 by 1080. And background transparent, and I'll do create. Okay, now I'm going to open those files. I'm going to go to pictures, and I'll find them. There they are, right here. So that one and that one. So all I really do, so first thing I have to do is image size. I have to change the height to 1080, and it'll automatically make the width the right size. First I can just do Control A, now Control C to copy. Now I go to new project, Control V, and there it is. And I can press on this arrow here, and now I can just move this around. First I have to unlock it. Let me make this a little bit wider. So the background a lot of times gets locked. If you click that, it's unlocked. So now I can move it around wherever I want. So you can put it wherever you want. So I'll put it there for now. Now I'm gonna go image, size, height, 1080. Control A, C. I'm doing 1080 because I'm using a 1920 by 1080 TV. Control V. And this one is not locked. It's always the background that's locked for some reason. So what you would just do, or what I would do usually, is I just try to center these. Sometimes I stretch them to try to fill more of the screen. That's up to you. Whatever. So, you know, as long as that looks good to you, you can just export it. Export it as a PNG. Save. And then you're going to need to save it to... So I'm going to go to desktop. Now see how these shortcuts I have? This makes it way easier for me to save stuff. So I would go to fade, which is my fade folder. Now it took me straight to MAME, because I do most of my stuff in MAME. But so in this case, I need to go to fade, and I need to go to Sega Naomi. And then see, you can see I already did this. P-Stone. You need to have a folder with the same name as the ROM. So that's P-Stone. And it needs to be called, in my case, or in most cases, you need to call it layer 1. Because that's the one layer that I'm showing for my fade. I'll talk about that more later. But you just call it layer 1. .png, and probably .jpeg is fine too if you want to do a JPEG. And that's it. And that's it for the fade. I used to do more complicated fades in some of my older videos. I'll show what that looks like now. So what I used to do is I had an image for each game that would show the controls, and then I had the flyer and the cabinet, and then like at the bottom I had a picture of the actual, you know, arcade control panel. And like that was when I had my Windows 7 drive. Once I moved over to Windows 10 drive, I tried to, you know, move all those same files over, and for some reason I couldn't get it working right. I couldn't get everything formatted right, and I just kind of gave up on it. And so for lately I've just been doing arcade flyers like this Power Stone thing, and then maybe a cabinet image just like that, because like that's just the other way was a lot of work, and I just kind of got tired of doing it. So that's what I'm doing now. I don't know if I'll ever go back to the other way. So all right, so that's the fade image, you know, that. And okay, the old way, it was a lot of different images. That it was like a layer 1, a layer 2, a layer 3, and maybe even another one, like a layer 4 animated image. It was a bunch of stuff that it was too complicated. It's too hard for me to explain. So now let's say we did the fade, we got the marquee, now we're doing the bezel. Here's what I would do. I would go to open, and in this is my pictures folder. There's all sorts of flyers and all sorts of .psd. This is like, you know, basically is a Photoshop file, but Photopia uses it, and that's where they got generated from. So I'm going down here to the bottom. I'm looking for, see this bezel 1 frame? Opening that. So this is what I open whenever I start any new bezel. See, it already has this plastic bezel frame, and that's a way for me to know like where the art's gonna end. And I also have that for vertical games. And I'm gonna share these files so that anybody could just open these and make their own bezels. So here's like a vertical game one. Some games might not line up perfectly with this bezel, so you'd have to do some, you know, image manipulation, figure stuff out. But horizontal games almost always fit perfectly in this bezel. So let's see, Power Stone Flyer. That's what I used. I used this to make the bezel. So what did I do? I kind of just like grabbed in here, and I said, all right, that guy, I'll try to make that guy part of the bezel. So I would just highlight him like that, and then I'm doing Control C to copy. So now I'm going to new project. Well, that's not what I want. Let me just close this so I don't get that confused. I'll go to close that, bezel 1 frame. So now I'm going to do Control V. And this got locked, so you just unlock it. Oh wait, that copied the whole thing. What the hell's going on? Oh, it's probably because I didn't select this layer. Maybe that's the problem. So I'm going to do Control C, and then I'll go here and I'll do Control V. There you go. It's, you know, simple shit like that. So again, I didn't select the layer. That was the problem. And what? Oh, it's locked. All right. For some reason, it's being called the background. All right. So I'm gonna. So to stretch this, you could go up in the menus to do it. There's like transform, and you can do all this, and there's free transform. I just do Control Alt T, and now I have these things I can grab. So I'm just gonna stretch this, and I just try to, you know, like, all right, that looks fine to me. Stretch sometimes. If you stretch these, they don't look right, but that looks okay to me. So I'll put him there. And you want to make sure that he's going past, yeah, he's not going past the plastic bezel. So I want him to go a little bit further. Remember, I'm using a trackball right now. Okay, so I think that's good. So now I'll go back to, what is this? This is that cabinet. I don't need that. I'll go back to the Power Stone Flyer. Now I will select the girl side. And she looks very excited down there. We'll see how much of this I can fit in here. No, Control V. And I'll just put this over here. And now I'm going to do Control Alt T. And drag this down, and as you can see, it gets stretched, but it still looks okay. It still looks okay. And yeah, the edges look good here. So next, oh yeah, so I remember thinking this looks kind of bare. Maybe I could put a logo there. So I would do, this is what I did. I did Power Stone Arcade logo. And you want a logo that's let me get it off of large, because it doesn't need to be large. Maybe I went here. No. Trying to retrace my steps. Maybe just put Power Stone logo. Sometimes you just got to do. Yeah, there you go. That's what it is. Don't have the word arcade. You just have to try different stuff. So look, that you can see is transparent already, so that's a good one. So I saved that one. And I should already have that. There it is. So, okay, it's not looking transparent here. So what you can do for that, if that's the case, you could do a... the hell's that damn magic wand? That's what you can do. I just clicked in the white part, and now I hit delete. Now it's transparent. You could click in there, hit delete, transparent, hit there, delete. You can adjust the tolerance up here, you know, to make it more or less tolerant. So Control A, C. That was the copy. Now I'm doing Control V. There's Power Stone logo. Let's move it over here. Then I do Control Alt T. That's for the free transform. And you know, adjust it to your liking if you want to have a logo here. Like I have the marquee already, so I don't really need a logo, but sometimes if I have a bare spot in a bezel, I'll just put a logo there. So that's how I do that. And then, okay, so you need to, what I usually do is save as a PSD file. This saves it as this, you know, one of those, and I'll usually rename it to the, like the game's name. Like you can see all these PSD files I've already done. I'll rename it just so that I know what it is. But once I've saved that, because a lot of times I want to go back and I want to make some changes to it. But once you like it, you export it as a PNG. Save. Then you need to go into your bezels folder. So see, I have bezels here. And this is Rocket Launcher Media Bezels, MAME. Oh yeah, we're not going to MAME. That shortcut leads to Bezels MAME, but we're going to Bezels Sega Naomi. So there's P-Stone. So here's my bezel. All right. So for bezels, it needs to be called bezel. I mean, it's best to just call it bezel.png, and then you need a bezel.ini file. I'm also going to share that. So for horizontal games, I usually just use the same ini file, and then for vertical games, I usually use the same ini file. Rarely I'll have issues where it's not lined up correctly, but usually it's fine. But you're not seeing the ini file because it's only showing PNGs. Let me change this to all files. There's the ini file. And that's just a little text document that tells Rocket Launcher where to put the bezel in relation to the game window. So you can see it's P-Stone, just like the ROM name. And then it's just bezel.png and bezel.ini. You could name it bezel, whatever, anything. As long they need to have the same name. But they need to, one needs to be .png and one needs to be .ini. And so then as long as you have bezels enabled in Rocket Launcher, you'll see the bezels show up. So I think I covered Marquees, I covered fade, like the actual how I do the artwork, and I covered the bezel, how I do it. In the description and maybe in the comments too, I'm going to share all my artwork, and I'll share those template files that, for making these bezels, this horizontal and the vertical one. So then maybe you could make some bezels and shit and share them. So, all right. How do you enable all of this stuff? So here's Rocket Launcher UI. That's where you need to go. Let me just go to properties, and let's just open file location. This is, for me, it's an arcade Rocket Launcher and then Rocket Launcher UI. So Rocket Launcher is what displays the bezels and the fade screens. The marquees are displayed by HyperMarquee and EDS. EDS runs HyperMarquee. And I have a separate video that I did a long time ago telling how to do all that. So let's go into Rocket Launcher UI. All right, Rocket Launcher UI opened up finally. And so Rocket Launcher is too complicated for me to go into. Everything that's in my main wheel is listed in here. It's just a ton of shit. All this shit. It's just so much shit. It's too much shit. All right, so let me just start a global. Global is going to cover everything. So let's say AE. You see how it says use global? If you have it, you can set it to be a specific thing, or you can just say use global. A lot of these systems here will just say use global. Let's see, Atari 2600. It's going to end up saying use global for a lot of stuff. Let's go to global, fade general. All right, this is like the quality. That's the highest quality, I think. Use system/ROM images only. I don't know what this is. It doesn't matter. Mute emulator on fade. You can just make the emulator not make any noise during the fade screen. Click through. This is something I used in my old fade screens where I had, all those images like I showed you. So you could make it so that you have to press a button before it'll go past fade into the emulator. And that's how I set it. I set it that way so that people would stop and actually maybe look at the controls, but I found it didn't even matter. People didn't pay attention. Like, I had the control panel image there with all the keys for every game, all the buttons for every game, to try to help people understand like how to control, but like I don't know how much it helped. Base resolution, height, then there's this use backgrounds. There's a backgrounds folder, a Rocket Launcher media, then backgrounds folder, which is a default. Let me show you that. Okay, if you go to Rocket Launcher and then media and then backgrounds, if you go to default, you'll see this is the default background that Extreme Home Arcades uses for all the games. If they don't have a specific folder for that game. Let me go to fade. Then there's default in here too. These are all default images that it'll show. For fade, if you don't have images to replace them. Game-specific images. Alright, so here's where you enable the fade in. That's when you first load up a game. You know, it's set to true to do the fade. If you add it to false, you're not going to see a fade at all. There's different animations. I would just say default. Duration is how long it's going to display, or how long it takes it for to appear and disappear. 100 milliseconds. You can make this much longer. Yeah, I remember I made my duration like way longer. I think I put like 999999999 because I wanted it to go for as long as until somebody pressed the click through button. I don't know. Exit delay. Maybe I did that one too. Play sounds. Like I said, you wanted sounds when it was loading. This is the fade out. This is when you exit a game. You can have an animation for that too. This is just a background color. So like you remember I was showing you, I was naming my fade images layer 1. That's the primary image. It's just a background static image. Over here, like this is defining stuff for that and image height too. But like right here, you can see this alignment of layer 2. I don't know why they don't actually have something telling you that this is layer 2, but these all apply to layer 2. The alignment of layer 2, adjust the size of layer 2, and pixels moves layer 2 image away from the edge of the screen. You really just have to experiment and try different values if you want to do some complicated fade screen. If you want to do something more than just a layer 1 image, you're going to have to experiment. There is a Rocketlauncher fade. If you Google Rocketlauncher fade, the first result will be this screen. This is where I learned about like how to use it. It tells you what these different layers are. Layer 1, this is a background image. Layer 2 is a static image. It can be placed anywhere in the screen. Layer 3 is a dynamic image that can have an animation applied to it. Layer 4 is a set of images where you can have multiple images that just play in series, and that creates an animation. And it tells you how they need to be named here. Layer -1, that's the fade out image. And it talks about how you can have per ROM layer images and how to do that. And it's like, for example, fade MAME and then 88 games, like, that's a game. And then layer 1.png. And it goes down here and tells you what all these mean. And that's what I had to do. I just had to read all of this and figure it out. If I went through all of this, this video would take hours to try to explain all of this. So, layer 3 static image. This is the one where you can apply an animation to it, so that it defaults to info bar. And this is where you can change the position of it and the alignment. And this is talking about layer 2 over here. So this one says layer 2. This is layer 3. So you just got to look at the information and make sure which layer it's actually talking about. So animated image. This, I'm going to show you what they had for MAME. Let me go to fade. See default here? All right, so MAME's default. This is the background image that's default for MAME. Here's the fade out default, and then I have these now loading images. I think that's the one I usually see. All right. So they used to see this Pac-Man thing here. This used to be when I would load up a game, that's what would display. And I didn't like it. And I'll show you why. Let me just so anything I don't like, this is what you're seeing in here. I make a new folder and I dump it in there. And then I never have to worry about it getting loaded because I put it in this folder and Rocketlauncher doesn't know where to find it anymore. To me, that's just the easiest way. I do the same thing with bezels. So like with bezels, for any given game, I don't know, I probably have, okay, so this isn't many, but I probably have multiple different bezels. If I got a really popular game, like let's say, let me look for like a Mortal Kombat game. Like Mortal Kombat. Alright, you see how I have a new folder here? Well, there's like, look at all this. There's a ton of crap in here. These are bezels that other people made and all sorts of crap. So the ones that I don't want Rocket Launcher to use, I put in a new folder. And then if there's one that I like, let's see what this is. Well, that's not one I like. Maybe it's this one. So yeah, maybe I like this one at the time. And so it will only use these. It's not going to use anything else. So yeah, some bezels will use multiple files. Like some will have a background file. In this case, it was just this. It was this right here, and then there's going to be like another. This is the plastic bezel, because if you only have a background file, it's not going to show anything. You have to have a file with the word bezel in it. This is something where I could come back and fix later if I wanted it to just be like 2 files, but that's a whole other thing. All right, so I'm gonna paste. I pasted these in here. So now, as a test, let's go to Hyperspin, and I'm just gonna I'll load up some game, and we'll see if that Pac-Man thing will load up now. I'm gonna keep the sound off. Okay, Thundercade. I played this recently. I made my own fade screen for this, so let me just... Okay, Thunder Jaws. Let's try this. There's that Pac-Man. See, it's all stretched vertically. It looks stupid. So I don't know why they allowed that. That's how it looked. And see, here's a bezel. So this game already has a bezel, which is nice. And I have a marquee for it that you're not seeing. Anyway, let me exit out. So that's why I was just like, okay, so like if I'm loading a game that isn't a Pac-Man game, I don't want to see a Pac-Man animation. But that was the default for every single MAME game, and I don't like that. So what you could do is you could go to, see how it's layer 4? Is layer 4 1, 2, layer 4 3, and that just tells it which what order to do these pictures in so that it animates properly. So you could go to, I think that's the easiest way, just put them in a new folder. That way you're not totally losing them. You could just delete them. I'm going to delete these right now because they're just copies. So I'm doing Shift Delete so that I don't have to empty my recycle bin. So what was I saying? All right, if you go to Rocket Launcher UI, here's animated image. So here, you could play with this and play with the scale, play with the width and the height. That's what you need to do. And of course, here's the other thing. We're talking about global here. So if all of these, like some of these other systems might have a totally different animated image. Like Atari might have some Atari mascot. Sega Genesis might have Sonic. Who knows? They might have a Sonic GIF. Where the hell? There's Sega Genesis. All right. So, and see how they say use global? Well, like, they're just going to use the same dimensions that whatever was defined for the global. And that's why that Pac-Man thing looks shitty, because they didn't define specific... Here's what they needed to do. They needed to go to MAME, that's Arcade Classics, and they needed to define specific width and heights for the Pac-Man image, but they didn't. So that's what you need to do. Figure out the best width and height if you want to have that Pac-Man image or any other image. And, here's where you align it. Or you could just do this one. So, like, that's probably an easier way to do it. If you want to get more specific, here's where you would do the X and Y for the animation. Of course, the speed and the scale. Padding kind of is about how far away it is from the edge of the screen. There's transparency. All right, for the hell of it, let's try to fix this Pac-Man aspect ratio issue with that fade. So I put those Pac-Man files back in here into Rocket Launcher Media Fade MAME default. So they're back in here, and so you can see all the images are 480 by 380. Yeah, they're all the same size, I'm pretty sure. 480 by 380. So here's what we can do. So here's global, and as I said, here's the problem. The image width here is set to 128, and the image height is set to nothing. And so if you don't put anything in here, it uses the original image resolution. So what it's doing is it's doing image width 128, and then doing that original image height, which is, what did I say? Come on. 380. So it's doing 380 height. So that's why it looks all warped and stupid. I don't know why they didn't fix this, because that's one of the first things I noticed when I was playing this this build. So anyway, here's what I would do. Since that Pac-Man thing is specific to MAME, I would go to MAME and see how it says use global. That's why it's using those numbers I just showed you. So I would just delete these and see what happens. So now it's just going to use the original image resolution. We'll see if that's good enough, or I don't know, it might end up being too big. So you have to exit Rocketlauncher UI to save the changes. So exiting, now we're going to go to Hyperspin, and we're going to see what happens. Okay. And all right, Thunder Fox. Okay, there's Pac-Man. His aspect ratio, and the reason he's choppy is because of the loading. Anyway, his aspect ratio was perfect, but he looked a little too big to me. So, how are we gonna fix that? Here's what I do. Is like, I'll look at the image, and this is, again, I gotta hover. 480 by 380, so I'll half that, like maybe half that'll be fine. So I'll do 240 by 190, and we'll see how that looks. So I gotta open up Rocketlauncher again. You could just edit the images and make all the images the resolution you want, you know, or do what I'm about to do. And I'm gonna go to MAME and Fade General. Gotta scroll down, and now instead of making it blank, we're gonna go 240 by 190. So now any image that's that animation image, and so you could, you know, as I said, I think before, you could make your own game specific animation images, but the problem with that is they're all going to end up using this these numbers. So, you know, maybe it's better to just edit the animation files themselves instead of doing it here. But I don't know, if you're just going to use like the same image for one system, like if you're going to use Pac-Man as a loading animation for everything, then you could just do this. So let's check out and see if 240 by 190, which is half of, if I did my math right, that's half of this 480 by 380. So now we'll see how Pac-Man looks once I get the game going. All right, so that's a good scale there. And again, he's slowing down because of the loading time. And if you wanted, so that looks like that's fixed. So that's how you would do that. So, as I said, what I do is I just do static images now for my main games. So wait, let me see. But no, actually, there's still some more other stuff displaying. Like I played Thundercade. That was just above Thunder Jaws. I played Thundercade recently, and I think I just have, for this one, I just have a single flyer for the fade. And yeah, you're still seeing up at the top MAME, and you're seeing the title of the game, and yeah, so you're still seeing some other stuff. All of that stuff, I'll show you where all of that's defined. That's defined in the fade info. So in here, yeah, it says use global. Again, if you want to make it specific to the system, you got to go to this system. So use global. Here's all the fonts and the visibility and the position, and see like the game info order and all of this stuff. I haven't ever. Oh yeah, I remember this was at the at the upper right of the screen. Number of times played, last time played. If you want to change all this is where you do that. Fade info and fade progress. This is for like if you have a progress bar. Some of these games will do the progress bar. Some will do like extracting. So you could have this only for games that extract out of a zip file. So like some of these CD games have to extract because they're big and they're compressed, so they don't take up as much space. So you see here it says extraction progress text. You can have a progress bar. I don't typically play these types of games. I'm playing arcade games that don't have to be extracted. For bezel, you need to have enabled true. So globally, have that enabled true if you like bezels. And I advise you to, for save last selection, I advise you have this to false, because if I had this at true for a little while, and it was making it maddening for me. So if I was changing my bezels, like, hey, I want to try this new bezel out. Well, I couldn't get the new bezel to display because it was always saving my last selection and always displaying the old bezel. So to avoid headaches, false is better. Full screen, you want to have it to fill for full screen bezel. Then you can define your bezel change keys. Like, I don't change my bezels while I'm in game. I just pick the bezel I like the most, and as you saw, I put the ones that I want to still keep, but I don't want them to load. I put them in a new folder. You can change background, supported image files. I've never messed with shader. So there you go. And of course, you know, you want to, let's see in MAME if, yeah, so I set this to true in MAME. I don't know, I guess I was being paranoid about it. So I have true here for use backgrounds. Transition animation, I put none. Maybe I was trying to get rid of some nonsense. I don't know. So anyway, Rocketlauncher gets really complicated. You can see there's a lot of different tabs. There's a lot of stuff going on here. But bezel and fade pretty much are only things you care about are fade general, fade info, fade progress, and bezel. I usually only look at fade general and bezel when I'm dealing with artwork. Marquees, you don't have to deal with Rocketlauncher at all. That's a whole separate thing with hyper marquee and hyper spin. I'm not gonna do. Unless somebody asks me to, I'm not gonna do a tutorial on all of this other crap. It's just too much. Hey, a good place is Arcade Atom on YouTube. Another is Simply Austin. And I'm sure their AV Archivist was pretty good back when I was trying to learn Rocketlauncher. I just looked on YouTube and watched people's videos teaching how to use Rocketlauncher, and that's how I learned it. When I first got this Extreme Home Arcades cabinet, I didn't know anything about Rocketlauncher, and I just had to learn it. I ended up like totally screwing up my build, and then I had to learn Rocketlauncher so I could fix it. I think I've covered everything. So, you know, it's in the settings. So global settings, and then there's fade general, fade info, fade progress, and bezel. And all this stuff is saved in configuration files. So like, here's my Rocketlauncher folder. So if you go to settings, you can see like, here's all your systems. Let me go to MAME. So here's all my MAME. All those settings are in here. If you wanted to just look at the text file, or you could just edit it in here. You don't have to edit it in that in the Rocketlauncher UI. You could just do it on the text files. And see, I made copies here for when I screw something up, so I can go revert back to an old version. Okay, let me look at the bottom of this folder. I think there might be, yeah, global. Global's at the bottom. So for a second I couldn't remember where it was. So yeah, there's all these global things. So if you're ever gonna mess with these, definitely make backups. So here's bezel, global bezel settings. All right, Did I cover everything? I don't know. Let me know in the comments. Ask me questions. I'm going to share everything I can in the description and comments below. And I think that's it for now. All right. Thanks for watching.